Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name's Haley, and we'll get started here in just a few moments. Please let us know where you're either viewing or listening from today, as I'm coming to you live from very chilly Connecticut. It has been in the negatives at night. I know everyone is experiencing pretty cold temperatures, but I definitely would love to know kind of where you are, where you're from, what you've got for weather. We've got a little bit of snow on the ground. Slowly melting. So welcome everybody. Hello from California, New Jersey. Welcome. We've got Virginia, California, Oklahoma City. We've got very cold New York, Ohio, Colorado, New York, Utah, Ohio, Central America. Welcome. Utah's got not too much snow, which is great. Welcome. Los Angeles, North Carolina, snow-covered coast. We've got Las Vegas, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Charlotte, Oregon. Welcome, everybody. I hope everyone is having a fabulous Thursday so far. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Haley, and I will be your host as we discuss today's topic, which is why SAST and SCA is the key to protecting your organization. Now, today's presentation is brought to you by OpenText and hosted by VIB. Today's webinar will be roughly 45 minutes long. We'll save the last 15 minutes or so for Q&A. For Q&A, we ask that you use the Q&A button at the bottom of your window to ask any and all questions, and we'll do our best to answer those at today's end of presentation. And if you've got your pop-up blocker on, please ensure that it is turned off, as we've got some great poll questions as well. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. We've got Tyler and Brenton, and Andrew will be able to give you a little bit more information on both. All right, Andrew, take it away.
Thanks, Haley. I appreciate that introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Garrett, and I am a product marketing manager. I have been on the Fortify team since 2020. It was part of Micro Focus back then, and now we're part of OpenText. But always love telling the story of Fortify and all that it has to offer. I'd like to introduce our product experts today that we have joining us. First of all, we have from the Fortify side, we have Brenton Witonski, and he is the principal product manager for OpenText Application Security and Fortify Hosted. As product manager, Brenton is responsible for the direction and delivery of the application security product known as Software Security Center, one of the leading application security platforms in the market today. Brenton has spent a quarter of a century in application development and security. After spending years pioneering the design and creation of application security programs at the enterprise level, Brenton transitioned into directing the application and enterprise cybersecurity assurance at a major fintech company. Coming to OpenText in 2021 to work on delivering the future of application security products with Fortify. So we're excited to hear from Brenton today. Also, we have joining us from Sonatype, the SVP of Product, Tyler Warden. And Tyler is responsible for the product strategy, roadmap design, and delivery of Sonatype's suite and open source solutions. A member of both the senior and product and technology leadership teams, Tyler is instrumental in the development and driving of the product strategy and vision from ideation all the way through to execution. And throughout his career, Tyler has worked in all areas of R&D, as well as at customer sites, giving him a unique perspective on the needs of organizations of all sizes across industries and lines of business. And he brings this perspective to Sonatype, helping to drive innovation and value with high customer and user empathy. So Brenton and Tyler, we're very grateful that you've taken this time to speak with us today. It looks like we have a great group joining us from all over the world, some international folks as well. So this will be great.
Yeah, very excited about everyone here. I got some all over the world, Wales, Central America, all over the US. This is exciting.
Absolutely. I saw Brazil in there as well. And Brenton, I'll go ahead and mute myself and pass the reins over to you, and we'll take it away.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to say welcome to everyone. So glad you're here. I am not going to talk as much. This is going to be a lot more around Tyler and looking at some of the open source and how the importance of bringing your open source into your application security program. And then we'll talk about some of the possibilities of how to integrate that into some of the leading capabilities in software around application security today. But I want to go ahead and kick off today with not only the welcome, but also with a poll, and just look at this one. What percentage do you think bylines of code are enterprise software applications open source? Like, how much open source are enterprise software applications today? 25, 50, 70, or 90%?
Yeah, and this is kind of on an average across the industry, right? Your applications might be different, but of all the enterprise applications we see around the world, if you add up all the lines of code that organizations write, and you add up all the lines of code that are on the open source that they bring in to make those applications go, what percentage of that entire suite are those lines of code what people write? And then in this question, then what is the percentages that is open source?
Let's see, those are coming in. I had to give a shout out to Ben out there in Arkansas. Go Hogs.
Pig suey.
That's right. I'll spare everyone the cheer. I won't go into it. Fun story. I did that in Texas once. It got an interesting reaction. Okay, let's see.
Answers.
Looking at the poll results here, we've got seems like most people are there in the middle. 50% one out, followed by 25%. Shocking to everyone, the answer is actually 90% on average. Enterprise software applications are open source components. So,
which is a great frame up to kind of why we're here today.
Yeah, so just a real quick, just a little bit, I'll kick this off and then it's going to be all Tyler. So, the two products that are really coming at you today around this is we have the OpenText Fortify Software Security Center and Code Security Platform Suite. That is really, it's the leading application security platform in the market today. We've been a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader for 10 years straight. I know it says 2023 is the latest, but they didn't actually put one out last year. So we don't have any gaps. We're still the leader. We're still going out there. We've been there for a long time. And so hopefully most or many of you are familiar with Fortify Software Security Center, with Static, with Dynamic, all the different components and capabilities that we have. I'll also put a quick plug in for our new Aviator functionalities coming out. We are leading in AI. We've actually been doing AI for 7 years. And so we've been leading in that space around application security. And so that's just a little bit about Fortify and who we are. And then Tyler, it's all you, sir.
Yeah, so we at Sonatype, our mission is to help the world innovate with speed and fearlessness when it comes to especially open source. So what I'd like you to think about us is I consider ourselves a supply chain management company. It's just we're working with very particular part of a supply chain, which is your software supply chain around open source. And since there's so much code as a percentage that everybody's using today, you have to manage that and treat it and love it and work with it like you're a car manufacturer who's getting their parts from a lot of different places put into their engine. That's how important it is. And so we bring those supply chain management concepts to drive your digital transformation using open source as that kind of one of the major innovation drivers. And if you're taking an hour, we can hit the next slide here. If you're taking an hour, whatever this is, 45 minutes to spend time with us, I wanted to try to make this, we want to try to make this useful as possible. So our State of the Software Supply Chain Report, which I think we have a slide on here next, will show a lot of the, this is a great report. It is free. and it'll show kind of the size and scale, best practice, a lot of great research around how the world is using open source today. And we put it out there because we want you to use it, right? We want you to screenshot it, take it, download it, reference it. So use it. And we wanted to pull some highlights from that today to kind of frame up, maybe give you some interesting nuggets, something to take back to understand kind of the scope and scale of open source. And then we're going to end up today with how all that open source intelligence and capability that we bring gets brought out through Fortify in a nice single pane of glass operational experience. So let's get started. Open source adoption is very, very big and continues to grow. I think we all have experienced the time pressures and the joy of building software. And whether that's for personal use or internal use or commercial use, there is something really exciting, I think, about solving problems for a living, and writing software is nothing but solving problems and building things, which I think is really fun. And one of the more enjoyable parts of that is not building, taking advantage of standing on the shoulders of giants. And that's really what open source is, at least how I think about it, is why write a database driver when I can use one that's already out there? Like, why write a UI framework? I can use one that's already out there. And so that's kind of the joy and the wonder of open source. And it's also a very amazing thing that one of the great, I think, kind of cultural changes of the internet is that there are individuals out there that have made an outstanding and outsized achievement and innovation to society because they've written something that gets used a lot of places. If there's any JavaScript coders out there, you should look up the history of one of the most commonly used JavaScript components called pad left. Pad left is literally an open source JavaScript component that allowed you to pad text to the left. Yes, there is a built-in JavaScript way to go do this, but that pad left component was used so much that when the maintainer stopped maintaining it and there was a bug in it, it caused a kind of a massive worldwide outage of a bunch of UI capabilities, and it was just kind of one guy. Which I think is awesome, right? We can all contribute to society in lots of different ways, and open source is a big way to go do that. But the use of it is growing, not shrinking. If you go to the next slide, that's further complicated by the fact that open source projects have a lot of interconnectivity, which makes it difficult to maintain. So there's a lot of one open source project component uses another one, uses another one, uses another one. And so you have this interconnected kind of mesh and weave of change. And there's the famous XKCD, oh, look, somebody put it, cartoon, where you see kind of the tower of blocks and a little open source kind of sitting there. So it is a challenge, right? And while I'm not one of these guys that goes out here and just kind of bashes people or about the problem. Oh my gosh, it's an unsolvable challenge. Again, what we're trying to do is give you some nuggets of information, because you're going to go back to your places of business and work. And if you will go to a certain kind of cocktail party, maybe your Friday nights, where this could come up, and these stats can be useful in driving things like your prioritization, how you spend your budget, how you think about how your resources and your organization's resources are being used. There is some kind of very famous kind of in our world on the next slide, history of exploits that have come through the open source world. I'm not going to read the slide, but I think if anybody was working in software around the holidays in 2021, I'm pretty sure you got hit by Log4j. When at the Christmas dinner table that year, when I had relatives ask me about what is log4j, then I knew that there had been, this had been a bigger than normal when, my college linguistic professor aunt was asking me about what's this log4j thing that I read about, right? And so these are some pretty famous ones that have come from open source. But I don't want you all to take away that open source is a threat. It is an amazing force for good and acceleration, and we just need to be sure that we're guarding against some of the threats and making the best selections possible. So, if the next slide, this slide here kind of summarizes that. 6.6 trillion open source packages downloaded by the end of 2024. We as Sonatype, outside of the software that we sell, we are also what are called the stewards of Maven Central. So if you use Java and you download Java components, that's most likely from us. We did about a billion that can't be more than that. 1 billion a month downloads last year from Maven Central. And we see, as the stewards of that across all ecosystems, a growth of malicious packages. So I want to spend a little bit of time on that, as this is probably a new concept. So open source is awesome. I love it. I would not want to be in software without it. There are some vulnerability risks, but there's a new class of attack that we wanted to make you aware of. And this is open source malware. So let me give a metaphor. An open source vulnerability is like you left a window open in your house. Of course, bad stuff could come in. A bird could fly in, a squirrel could get in, a robber could get in through that second floor open window. But it's an opportunity for something to happen. And a lot of what we do and have done for years is have software that'll scan and evaluate to say, oh, you know what? That window's open. We should probably close it. And then software teams say, well, I got a front door problem here and a plumbing problem here, and I need to put this new addition on. So I'll get to closing that window. Maybe like log4j is the front door is open. So that may be worse, and some vulnerabilities is the open window, right? So there's all sorts of cool stuff around open source where you can like make a better component selection and being used more and being updated. But at the most basic, one of the things people think about is this going to leave a window open in my house? So that's a vulnerability. Open source malware is a robber in your house currently stealing from you. And this is a new trend on the rise. Maybe not most recently, but most famously last year. On the next slide, you might have read about the XZ attack. So this was a near miss. And what happened here is you have this XZ package, which is good and healthy and had some vulnerabilities in it. But what happened in this case is a hacker purposely put bad code into some of the logging and help areas of XZ, hoping people would download it, not to attack the software, but to attack you, to attack your DevOps tooling, to attack your developers' workstations. So it was designed to attack typically the development process, your Jenkins pipelines, your Azure DevOps pipelines, your GitHub Actions, your GitLab runners, your IDEs, your development workstations. And we've seen, the next slide shows a dramatic rise in these sorts of new attacks. So this is something that we're trying to kind of ring the bell on and say, hey, look, your SDLC has a new attack vector against it. Most vulnerabilities are used to attack the end software that you ship. This is designed to attack your SDLC, and traditional malware tools like antivirus scanning and that sort of thing are not designed to catch this. This is very unique to the open source world and open source in intelligence. By our estimates, the next slide, about a little over 50% of unprotected repos already have malware cached in it. So something to take a look at and kind of think about. And a slide, which is the next one that maybe is a good one. We see a lot of people kind of take a snapshot of this. Again, all of these stats and charts come from that State of the Software Supply Chain report. Download it. It's free. Use it. Love it. These are the kind of malware attacks that we see out there in the wild right now. Sonatype has one of our, I guess, claims to fame is we have recognized as by far the broadest, deepest, fastest, and most accurate intelligence base on how the world uses open source, and a bunch of security researchers and AI and cool stuff running in there to go analyze it. And so from our research and our findings and the hundreds of thousands of organizations that use our repo and other capabilities, we know that this is the most common what we observe of the malware that is out there. The most egregious is probably the data exfiltration. These are the ones that we see as the biggest current kind of threat of the moment, that data is exfiltrated from your SDLC, right? And so we think it's important, if we go to the next slide, to think about how to block open source malware from your environment. I'm not going to talk too much about that here. We have plenty of information about it, so does OpenText. But we want to just take the opportunity of this webinar to say that open source malware is a threat, something to think about, something to plan for. But again, this is open source is an amazing world for good. Because it's a world for good, evil people want to exploit that. And so I love having the privilege to help the world develop more fearlessly and try to protect the world of innovators from this open source malware. Just wanted to raise it as something that might be new to you. So part of what we get to do as innovators is help the world and help our organizations make really good component choices. Like if I'm a car manufacturer, I want to source the best spark plugs I can for my car, right? And I get to help make those choices. So speaking of those choices, we have another poll question out for you. So Brenton?
Yeah. So, what percentage? So you're out there, you're developing, your developers are developing, they're out there looking for open source components, different, functions and things that they want to bring into as they're developing their application. How many of those downloads, when open source is being downloaded, those components are coming into your environment, how many of those in 2024 had a more secure version available for download? So again, think of the scenario. They're out there looking for functions, they're bringing in these features, and they're downloading a library, a third-party component, a specific version of that had a more secure version available, did not have obvious vulnerabilities or known vulnerable components in it, as OWASP top 10 would say. So do you think that's 10% of them, 45, 65, 95? Where is that at of really people downloading vulnerable or insecure open source components?
I'll give you a real life example. So I'm a developer and I'm using Brenton.java version 2.1. And Brenton is a really great open source maintainer, and he put out 2.5. Doesn't break anything, just has a bunch of fixes and maintenance, but I'm still using 2.1. Even though 2.5 is out there, if there's a more secure, there's a better version, doesn't break my build, doesn't hurt anything. What percentage would be using the 2.1 when the 2.5 is out there of downloads? People reach out and they go download it.
Okay, Haley, what do we got? Okay, all around the board, still a lot of people in the middle, 45, 65. Again, this is around our persistent vulnerability risks, so I'll hand it back to Tyler and let him shock you.
Yeah, so 95%. We track just about every open source download, and we have a vulnerability database of about 70 million vulnerabilities, and we see about 90. It's 95%, and it's been that way for a while in the mid 90s. Yeah, it's a pretty big number. Now, there's some percentage that you're just going to get, right? Like I'm using an old version of Angular that's out of support. And as you know, you can't just hot swap Angular to React or anything like that, right? So there's a certain percentage of just tech debt and stuff that's too painful to pay down, but 95%. Remember when we talked about Log4j earlier? Log4j was, call it January 22, December 21. Let's call it January 22. So that's all of 2022, all of 2023, all of 2024. And we're still, this is mid 2024, 13%. We're down to about 12% of Log4j still being downloaded actively today is that bad vulnerable version that my aunt asked me about at Christmas. So it just goes to show you that there are these risks put in applications that are still there. When we hit the next slide for me for a second, this really goes into component choice. And there's a lot you can tell about an application based off of the freshness of its components. The answer to the second poll was 95%. 95% of all downloads have a safer version that could be downloaded. So versions, so if you look at the corrosive risk, there are quality issues that if there's persistent risk or corrosive risk that stays there and eats away over time, that could be a symptom of an open source component that isn't getting the love and attention that it should, right? So if there's too much corrosive risk somewhere, when you're making a component choice, and this is always a choice. As a software developer, I would go need like a logging framework. I go make a choice. I go to the internet or I go search for the one that I want. I go ask my AI tool which one I should use. I go Stack Overflow, whatever. I ask my buddy. I go get one. I bring it in. And in almost every organization, that open source component goes in. I made the choice. Then I send it to I make my pull request or merge request. It goes to a peer review. Some other developer looks at it, makes the choice, says, yeah, okay, that's a fine one for me. That ideally gets scanned by something to tell you what that choice means to you, and then a decision made and it gets merged in. So a component choice can have a huge impact on your velocity, speed, interoperability. I know as somebody that leads teams, how nice it would be to be able to move resources around, dollars, money, people, pipelines, based off of what my strategy is. And so making the right open source component selection can make me, like if I can standardize in my organization on certain frameworks, certain components, the better I can move resources around, the faster I can have my organizations move. Unfixed risk, time to remediate, if that spans too much time, then you also have components that are being maintained. And so if a major part of your software is, let's say, logging frameworks, right? That's a really easy example, or the database driver, right? Nobody writes their own of those. You go get that. If you're using a database driver that has vulnerabilities that take a long time to be fixed, you kind of have to think about how active those maintainers are. Well, there's always going to be risk in that. It might be license risk, it might be vulnerability risk, it might be any of those things. And these all go into your selection criteria. So then we go into this visual a lot, and that's a software supply chain report. But the one thing I would leave you with, which is the next slide before kind of we get into how we help you solve this problem with a really cool demo, is the risk of complacency, that there is a vulnerability rate that happens just from not keeping up with later and better versions. So it is always cheaper, maybe not always, but there's many an engineering maxim that preventing a problem is cheaper than fixing it. And so the practice of proactive dependency management, which is not always going to the latest version, latest doesn't mean best, but of a practice in technology organizations, in engineering or organizations, to actively in every sprint or every sprint cadence, look at these components, keeping up with them is way cheaper than getting some vulnerability scan. It gives you a red X and you got to go move it forward. So it's a significant amount, about 3.5% risk that just comes from a lack of complacency, right? So the kind of challenge here is, how can we as business partners to all of our technology teams provide them with the intelligence and the automation and the tooling to make the best decision about so much of their code, right? How can we have them make the decisions that lead to the least tech debt, the least rework, the fastest innovation and delivery cycles, and taking the most risk out of what we deliver to our customers and the market. And us and Fortify have been working together, or OpenText working together for years, to give you, through that lens of OpenText and through that world-leading kind of security console, this insight into all the code that you write and all the code the open source world writes, to give you that kind of unparalleled view. So I'm going to hand it over to Brenton to take you through that kind of solution set, and how we can help you solve and address some of these challenges and opportunities.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tyler. So, obviously, we've got some major companies here with some major products that, we're bringing to you. I will say, over the years, like I said, I've been in application security and software development for a little over 25 years. And I've done a lot of consulting over those years, building application security programs, working with development groups on how to build successful programs and really to secure the applications that we're going. And the bottom line is, you're going to have tools. There's no possible way to truly scale security and identifying vulnerabilities in your applications manually, or doing code reviews or things such as that. It's just not possible, especially at the speed of development and where we are today. So you're going to have tools. What we would want to tell you is that, the two tools that are represented here are truly industry leading capabilities. So with Fortify and OpenText, hopefully, again, you are doing something for static analysis, dynamic analysis, evaluating your custom code and what you are doing, and the vulnerabilities are there to try to, secure your custom code and what you're developing, but then bringing Sonatype's capability into finding the open source components and identifying licensing, vulnerabilities, vulnerable components and functions and what you're using. They truly are a best in industry solution for that. And so again, you're going to have to choose tools. What we're going to advocate for in here is that choosing these two tools allows you to integrate them into one interface and one pane of glass to see all of your static, dynamic issues, as well as all of your open source issues in one place. And we have seen and proven over the years that when you automate this, when you integrate this into your build pipelines, into your software development lifecycle, you see a drastic drop in the number of vulnerabilities and the number of the amount of exposure you have in your applications. And so again, if anything comes out of this webinar for you today, that you have seen the importance and the danger of some of the open source, 90% out there open source coming in, 95% of the open source being downloaded last year having known vulnerabilities in it. Hopefully you will see the urgency of making sure that you are incorporating open source evaluation, open source security onto your components, open source libraries and components. You're incorporating that into your application security program. It is not enough just to statically scan your code, to dynamically scan your applications. You need to bring in this component. And so what we want to try to do is make that easy for you to do. One of the things that I love about adding on, static has been around for, I would say, at least 15, 20 years, back in the Gary McGraw days, and bringing out a lot of those new capabilities. And when those scanners started coming out, it's been around for a while. I know I see a lot of security programs that have implemented very effectively static security programs. The joy of, or the niceness of bringing in open source is you're doing it on the same set of component, or not components, but you're saying your repository, right? Your source code. It's all coming into your build. It's the same artifacts that you're testing for static. You can now begin to test for open source. And so what we have done with this integration between OpenText and Sonatype is we've allowed you to see that again in one pane of glass within your Software Security Center application. And so here, and this is what I'm going to demo in just a moment, but I just wanted to kind of show this, of having this integrated, bringing these into one place allows you to see all of your static vulnerabilities like you're hopefully used to. You can also see the open source components and the vulnerabilities that come with that. So it allows you to prioritize your open source issues along with hopefully your current existing application security program that is looking at the static analysis of your source code. And so jumping into the demo here, I'm just going to bring this out. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to make some assumptions. Just for simplicity of a demo. We don't have a lot of time for a demo, but I'm going to log into Software Security Center, and I'm going to assume that you have integrated these into your pipelines, Sonatype, Fortify, they're scanning, they're working, and they are pushing the results and the vulnerabilities of what you are securing to this platform. And so I'm going to go, again, I'm not going to show the integration in the back end, but I am going to look at this and just manually show you what the effect would be after these things are installed. And so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to assume I've done a software composition analysis scan. Software composition analysis, which it's a little confusing out there. It's the same acronym SCA that you do for software composition analysis, which would be the open source. We are working to kind of clarify that a little bit in the product. But again, I'm assuming that you have integrated these into your pipelines, into your DevOps pipelines, your Git pipelines, and it has uploaded this FPR, which is our results file of the scan. And then you can see your static results here. So this is where you would typically go through Fortify Software Security Center, and you would be able to audit, understand the information about the issues, the details, those kinds of things. Although I'm not really here to demonstrate just that today, I really want to demonstrate what it looks like when you now bring in a Sonatype scan that is also set up into your pipeline, and you pull that into SSC. And again, I'm doing this manually, but this would all be automatically coming in. You're going to process these from Sonatype, from those scans, and it's automatically through the integration going to be able to link in one place all of your static analysis results and all of your open source analysis results. And so here in this same platform, you would be able to go into the issues of your open source vulnerabilities and have the links to the CVEs, links back to the Sonatype reports, and more detail, more information about the open source vulnerabilities that you have. Again, giving you just this opportunity to have them all in one place. And again, I'm grouping these here in the tool, but I could actually even ungroup these and have them all on the same screen if I wanted to. Additionally, in Software Security Center, you're able to go to the open source tab and just focus on the Sonatype results. And so here you can actually come through, you can do auditing of just your open source, look through what you have. And again, we have these links back to Sonatype, which is your source of this information. It's called Nexus IQ server, and you can go into and actually set up policies, work in more detail, and actually modify what's driving this integration. and being able to manage and work with all of your vulnerabilities, again, in one place. And so, like I said before, no matter what you do, if you're serious about securing your applications, you're going to have tools. My recommendation, and what I've always recommended to people, whether it's these tools or even before I worked at OpenText, when I'd recommend all kinds of things, my number one recommendation is always to try to integrate as much of these as possible so you can have them in one place and not have to go to multiple tools every time you want to look at basically the state of your risk and the state of your application security program. And so that's going to do that for the demo. Hopefully there are some questions about that. Remind you that there's a Q&A section. I'm going to do a few more slides, and then, hopefully we will get to answering some of your questions and talking a little bit more about these solutions. I am extremely passionate about application security. I love talking about it. I love getting out there and really raising the awareness and understanding, because I truly believe application security is not just about you securing your code, but it's really about securing the ecosystem of applications and code of the world, because we're all in this together if you really think about it. And so just a few resources I'll throw up there. We have some additional workflows, additional videos and things that you can get out there and look at. We do have one more poll question, so don't go away just in a few slides. But also we have a Fortify Unplugged capability or community out there that you can source videos through YouTube, get more information about these tools, these capabilities. No matter what you do, please do not leave today without feeling the urgency of protecting your applications, not only from a static standpoint and static code analysis and dynamic code of your applications, but also from an open source perspective. We've got to secure the open source components along with our overall applications. So our last poll question, a little bit of a marketing piece. If you would like more information about this, please let us know so that we can reach out to you. If you already have a good static analysis capability and you just want to bring on the open source, obviously click the one just to get some Sonatype information. If you do not have either of them, let us know. If you haven't even started in doing basic static analysis, please let us know. Would love to talk to you about the importance and the capabilities that we can offer you to help you bring that. And then, of course, if you don't need information, we just appreciate you being here. I appreciate every one of you who have come here, spent your time to learn more about security. We're never going to get better. We're never going to protect our world if we're not curious, if we're not seeking information, and we're not growing. So I really appreciate every one of you for being here. And again, thank you to Tyler. I really appreciate all the great information around open source and helping us learn the urgency. And again, thank you, everybody. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Okay, we got a couple coming in. Okay, what sort of issues are commonly flagged from the static code analysis or the SAST offering of Fortify? That is a fantastic question. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of categories that create to thousands of different types of vulnerabilities that are identified in static analysis. But I'll say some of the really big rocks, if you're familiar with OWASP top 10, a lot of the OWASP top 10, I think the last time I checked, like 7 out of the 10 of them can be identified easily with static analysis of your source code. And so what you're looking at, things like cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, hard-coded passwords. I am absolutely floored when I look at vulnerability results for applications, especially first time going into an enterprise and seeing the sheer number of hard-coded passwords or hard-coded credentials and things that are still in our source code today. I can't remember the exact reference, but it was only about 3 years ago there was a major breach because there was hard-coded password credentials in code. So low-hanging fruit like that is really easy to pull out. Also, all kinds of, I mean, like I said, there are hundreds of categories, thousands of vulnerabilities, but that's just a few of them. And again, if you're focused on OWASP top 10, static analysis is going to get you a bulk of those and allow you to see the vulnerabilities that are there. I would definitely encourage also to incorporate that with dynamic. So static analysis is just that. It's static analysis of your source code. It is the engine, the static analysis engine, which I will put a plug in here. Fortify is one of the best engines for finding static code vulnerabilities out there in the market today. But that engine is basically looking at your data flow. It's looking at all of your code, and it's pulling in as much information as it can to anticipate where those vulnerabilities are. When you link that in with dynamic and actually test your product as it's running, it can correlate those results and actually give you the more of iterative static analysis that will actually show you the vulnerabilities that you can exploit immediately within your code. So very powerful, very strong capability. And in my argument, I would have made this argument long before I came to work at OpenText, back when I'm building application security programs and any of my consulting with application security programs. Your foundational part or component, I actually call it a pillar in one of my presentations that I give on application security. Your foundational pillar is static analysis, because it's easy to do at scale. I don't care if you have 1,000 lines of code or 60 million lines of code. I can scale out static analysis, automate it, and very quickly get results of my source. So very powerful. I highly recommend getting into that. Next one, does Sonatype or Fortify do anything about dynamic testing of web applications? Okay, kind of just talked about that a little bit, bringing in dynamic. Another pillar, as I would call, I've got 5 pillars of application security. Static is one, open source components is another, dynamic is a third. Yes, so Fortify does have an entire dynamic application security testing capability in our Web Inspect platform. It also integrates into Software Security Center through what we call source. I just lost it, SC-DAST. So we have an entire component that brings that capability back into the mix. In fact, I will go ahead and see if I can, forgive my scrolling here, go back to the very first slide where I showed what Fortify is. This is really on the left here. This is all the things that we offer. So we've got the SAST, we've got the DAST, we've got partnership with Sonatype for SCA. We have Aviator to bring in the AI capability. We have partnerships with Source Code Warrior. If you're familiar with Source Code Warrior, one of the best training platforms for secure development out there. I love it. I have implemented it long before I came to OpenText, worked on it. I'm sorry, Secure Code Warrior. Well, I don't remember what I even said. Secure Code Warrior. I've been working with that for almost a decade. Powerful capability as far as training and helping development groups learn more and better about application security and how to develop securely. And so, yes, there are a lot of options and capabilities out there with our Fortify overall ecosystem and platform. Sonatype is going to be focused mostly on your open source. And I would say because of that, because they are solely focused on that open source, that's one of the reasons why they're industry leading. That's one of the reasons why they have such a great capability, is that they are focused on that. And that's why we have partnered with them, because they are leading in that space. And so that's, I would say, answer that question is, for dynamic, you would want to get into the Fortify suite. Tyler, did you want to add anything to that?
I was just gonna co-sign on that. Sonatype doesn't want to do SAST or DAST, right? That's why we partner with OpenText, right? We're trying to bring the best of all to help the world operate securely.
Yeah. Any other questions? We've got a few more minutes. anything that anyone would like to know about what we're doing here, about application security in general. Like I said, I love to talk about application security. So any questions at all, I'd be happy to field.
One other topic I just want to mention it is that we have extended the SCA capability to what just was open source to now also include AI and ML models. So if you look at what an AI model is, it a lot of ways feels a lot like open source, the ones that are open source, right? They're community driven, they're shared, they're downloaded, they carry great innovation potential, they carry risks with them. And so just like you could scan your software and have policies against what open source you're going to use, we can now do that and bring that capability up into the Fortify integration around AI and ML models, large language models, natural language models, visual text to speech, all sorts of stuff. Any and all kind of AI ML models that are open source can also be governed and used by this kind of combined governed and controlled and policied and reported on by this combined platform.
Fantastic. And also just to throw out a few more of those categories, I just wanted to look up for, not only with passwords, cross-site scripting, path manipulation, anything where XML validation, static will find that, log forging, misconfigurations in J2EE, denial of service, if you have an opportunity for that in your code. We also see access control, build misconfiguration, things that are, contributing to vulnerabilities in your application. And so static, again, hundreds and hundreds of categories, thousands of things under that. Even with cross-site scripting, there's reflected, there's DOM, there's persistent, all those different areas of vulnerabilities. Again, at scale, hundreds of millions of lines of code, immediately have those results and understand what the state of the risk of your application is. So very powerful capability. Oh, I have another one. What sets Fortify and Sonatype apart from other solutions in the market? I will say one of the things that sets Fortify away, and then I'll let Tyler kind of talk a little bit about Sonatype. What sets Fortify apart from other solutions is the one thing is the quality of the scan, and the scanners are the engines that are actually driving the results coming forth. And so Fortify has, and like I said, I've been doing this for 4 years at OpenText, but I have been doing application security for 25 years, and I have used every single product, and I have compared every single major static analysis product in the market. I've done the side-by-sides, I've torn through them. Every single time, Fortify has always had better results. One of the things that you'll see in static analysis, I'd say the Achilles heel, the big problem is false positives, right? Rate of false positives and having too much information. Of course, I won't get into it, but that's where our AI comes into place that reduces all of that. But a lot of people will complain that Fortify gives more false positives. Well, that's because Fortify is doing a much more thorough investigation and analysis of your code, and therefore will find things that may not actually be a problem, but it's going to look at it. I've even seen times when I've had, a lot of false positives and noise coming around an area that actually helped me find something that was a problem that the analyzer just couldn't quite pinpoint. But because of that thoroughness of the analyzation, you won't miss anything. You will not get the false negatives. What I've found in other products, what they've done to try to reduce the number of false positives is they pull back on the quality of the scan so that they're only getting the obvious things, and therefore you end up with a lot of false negatives in those areas. And so I would say the quality of our scan is better, and also the flexibility. One of the things that sometimes causes customers a problem with Fortify is that you can do anything with it. I never found that as a problem. I appreciated that as a customer of Fortify and using it for over a decade as a customer, is that I literally could control my program and customize my program to my environment, to my enterprise. I've deployed Fortify across 5 different companies over the years personally, and every company was different. And so not having a one size fits all solution, but having it, where I could customize it and do whatever I wanted to. The other thing I would say about Fortify that separates us, and I'll let Tyler go, is our capabilities and deployment. We have on-prem capabilities where if you have limitations, you can't be in the cloud, we can do that. We also have multi-tenant and single-tenant cloud deployments that are capable depending on what you have. If you do not have a security team that can run a security program, we have a fully multi-tenant cloud solution that we can run it for you. And so that's one of the things that I would say differentiates Fortify from other persons in the market. Tyler, Sonatype?
I think the thing that separates the most is the philosophy that we are trying to help organizations optimize their supply chain, not just scan and scold when there's a CVE found. So with that philosophy, we focus on precise identification, exactly what open source, exactly what AI ML you were using. That precise identification then is paired up against what is by far the most accurate, deep, broad, and fast moving intelligence layer. I'll give you an example. A lot of people use CVEs, right? From the NVD, from maximum acronym. I think the latest CVE count is something like 400,000. We have 70 million vulnerabilities in our database. Why? Because we expand and we go deep and we analyze way faster than anything publicly. And then that has to operate at scale with incredible precision and configurability to decrease noise so that innovation can happen. So we help you make better component selections, not pass defects downstream, and keep unparalleled visibility end to end, where our competitors are very much scan, scold, and get out of the way. So it's a focus on innovation and decision backed by incredible intelligence and scale. And then together, we wake up every day helping the world innovate with open source. Fortify and team wake up every day driving an application security mindset. So you put the two together, and it really is unparalleled in terms of a real commitment to innovation, with the lowest false positives and the highest backbone of reliable automation you can get in the industry.
Fantastic. So looks like we are out of time, but I put it in the chat, but thank you everyone. Really appreciate your desire to secure applications, to grow in this space, because it really is, we're all part of this world of applications. Our world is driven by it, and it's going to take all of us to make it secure and ensure that we're protecting not only all of our customers, but all of us. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you all being here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brenton and Tyler, for today's information, and thank you for OpenText for today's presentation as well. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the webinar for today. I want to again thank everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And if you have any questions for VIB, of course, you can always reach us at VIB at webinars@vib.tech. If not, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Thursday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.